There was a huge trade-off that XRP made in the very early days that got it a lot of criticism. But guys, this one trade-off might be a huge reason why over the long run, Bitcoin could have some massive issues and XRP could become the #1 chain. In this video, I want to talk about that as well as a critical level that XRP is holding right now that it needs to hold till Monday. Make sure to stick around to the end of the video to see that. You're not going to want to miss it. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. With that said, let's jump right into it. And I hope you guys enjoy the content. I want to start off this video and talk about something that not a lot of people truly understand in terms of bootstrapping a blockchain. This is where XRP gets a lot of FUD, and in my opinion, it's completely undeserved. But I often talk about on this channel that 99% of people in crypto don't understand crypto. And because of that, I think people really misunderstand this one key thing. In the very early days of both Bitcoin and XRP, there were a very small group of people working to build these blockchains. And one of the things that you absolutely need for any decentralized chain is you need to have a group of participants. Participants are what create decentralization. If you only have one player, well, guess what? You just have another centralized system. Now, to get people to participate in these chains is the difficult part. In the very early days, Bitcoin chose to pay people or reward them with Bitcoin for participating. And this is why you have mining. People are contributing compute to earn Bitcoin. With that said, though, the XRP ledger said, we don't want mining because it makes things slow and inefficient. So we're just going to completely get rid of mining. But in that case, there needed to be a way to distribute the token. And what Ripple chose to do was to sell the token to people who wanted it. Now, this is a very different way of distributing the token. Some people argue that the way Bitcoin did it is more fair because you can essentially earn the Bitcoin for free. Even though at the end of the day, I look at it, either you're paying for electricity and then getting Bitcoin, or you're just buying XRP straight out. Regardless, that is really the decision that had to be made in the very early days. With that said, though, there is something that could come back to really impact Bitcoin, which is what happens when all 21 million are used up. Now, David Schwartz actually talked about this in a post early in 2025, and he said that this could be the downfall of Bitcoin because essentially miners who are there right now to earn a profit might not want to be there if there's no more Bitcoin to mine. And the problem is Bitcoin, like XRP, is a blockchain. But Bitcoin has completely destroyed its utility narrative. People are only holding Bitcoin because it's decentralized gold or digital gold. With that said, though, there's no other underlying reason to use the Bitcoin network as it's positioned at the moment. The problem with that is the original plan for Bitcoin was, when mining is done and all 21 million Bitcoin are distributed, people or miners will just stop getting rewarded with unallocated Bitcoin and instead earn off transaction fees. But guys, if the narrative is never sell your Bitcoin, if the Bitcoin blockchain is not innovating and moving fast enough to become a money movement protocol, and it's not garnering any interest from tokenized assets because it can't do tokenized assets, then what are people going to move their Bitcoin for? And if no one is using the Bitcoin blockchain, miners aren't going to get rewarded. This is where David Schwartz talks about something that I think would be catastrophic for Bitcoin. And that is what happens if the miners say, we want Bitcoin to be inflationary so we can keep earning rewards. Now, what you're seeing here is there's a very interesting battle emerging. There is a battle between the people who hold Bitcoin and the people who are securing the network. The people securing the network just need a way to earn income. They need a way to earn a reward for participating because that is what they're used to. That's why they're there. But this is at a complete contrast to the people holding Bitcoin. For example, if I'm a miner, I probably want infinite Bitcoin to mine. But if I'm a holder, then it's so critical to the ethos of Bitcoin that there's 21 million. This puts the two most important stakeholders against each other, and in my opinion, creates a massive conflict of interest because both parties are going to want something else. This is a huge problem for the Bitcoin chain, not just because it doesn't necessarily have to end in a complete explosion or it doesn't have to end bad, but it's an unknown. No one knows what's going to happen when the 21 million Bitcoin is distributed. Are the holders' ideology going to win out in terms of them saying, you know what, we'll figure out what we need to figure out, but we are never creating new Bitcoin? Or are the miners, the people who control all the hash power, going to get greedy and say, actually, we want to make sure we're still earning money, or there's no point to us being there? Now, the XRP ledger, funny enough, doesn't have this issue because the XRP ledger goes off a ideology that no incentive is the best incentive. And therefore, the only reason you would be contributing compute power to the XRP ledger is because you need to use the XRP ledger. But that's the key difference between XRP and Bitcoin. There is an actual utility to using the XRP ledger. You can do tokenization, you can do instant payments, you can do instant settlements. It's actually a useful technology for financial application, something that Bitcoin doesn't have. So you don't have this issue of having to reward people with a monetary incentive to be there. The utility of the chain functioning as is the reward for all the stakeholders. And that is something that the XRP ledger is never going to have to deal with. Right now, the XRP ledger is taking off in one extremely important category, and that is tokenized assets. Right now, the XRP ledger is actually winning in the amount of RWAs flowing in. This is super exciting because I think this is going to be a massive narrative moving forward. The killer application we've seen for cryptocurrency so far has been stablecoins or tokenized fiat. But guess what? There's going to be other tokenized assets out there as well. And I believe one of them is already on the way, which is tokenized treasuries. Then I think it's going to be tokenized bond. I think tokenized real estate is just getting started. And I think tokenized equities, given good regulation, is going to explode as well. If the XRP ledger continues to lead here, it cements itself as having deep utility in this specific category. Something that's going to keep people using the XRP ledger for decades to come. Because, they want access to the actual technology that blockchain delivers to the world. This is something that Bitcoin is never going to have, or at least anytime soon. And because of that, you have this huge problem of everyone just showing up to the Bitcoin chain to hold Bitcoin. But that doesn't give people any reason to keep contributing to the chain in its current form. And the XRP ledger, there is always an incentive to keep the chain healthy and strong because of the economic utility that the XRP ledger itself delivers. But if no one's actually using the Bitcoin blockchain, if no one's actually settling transactions or tokenizing assets or using Bitcoin in any financial applications other than just holding it, the basic structure of Bitcoin folds on itself because the people who are creating the security are no longer being incentivized to be there. And what we're watching right now, in my opinion, is the start of that, with a lot of Bitcoin miners shutting down and moving over to AI. These are things that the market is not looking at right now. These are things that the market is not considering. But by understanding these core concepts, you put yourself ahead of the vast majority of people out there because you understand the consensus mechanisms that are going to drive long-term adoption, long-term network effects, and where value is going to be headed in the future. Right now, the market is not sophisticated enough to understand these things. But at the end of the day, just like Amazon won because it was the best company, just because Google won because it was the best search engine, because Tesla won because it had the best electric cars, the blockchain that is built the best to stand the test of time is going to be the one that wins out. So even if the market isn't appreciating these things right now, over the long run, it will be absolutely impossible to ignore. Now, guys, I want to finish this video off and just go over the XRP price chart real quick, because what we're seeing is XRP is actually creating a nice little uptrend off this previous bottom that happened in early June. Now, if XRP can keep going up here and hold the $1.12 level, we're going to be looking pretty good in terms of this being the ultimate bottom on XRP. Now, we just so happen to be holding this big flash crash back in February as well. We're really just looking overall for XRP to get enough momentum to pop back up here to the $1.36 region, and this would then be our ultimate full reversal. We're definitely still on track for this. Things still look pretty good, and as long as we can avoid any massive blowups in the global economy, it's almost impossible for me to think that XRP doesn't gap back up to this level. So this is what I'm watching right now from the technical perspective. I want to focus on a lot more of the longer term things because at the moment, I just think people need to realize that the market is not appreciating some of XRP's best attributes. And over the long run, that is going to be what makes XRP win out over everything else. Not short-term pumps, not things like meme coins, not things like NFTs, things that make the XRP ledger the most desirable chain for being a brand new space age financial tool. In the short term, the market's not focused on that. But over the long run, that is what is going to create maybe one of the most powerful and important systemic pieces of technology our financial system has ever seen, with XRP at the center of all of it. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update. For now, Mickle out.